Welcome back. If you haven't watched the various videos, previous videos related to GUIs, you should probably do that at this point. So this video is going to look at the various components that are referred to as panes in the GUI library. So we've looked at panels. Panels are not the only way to lay things out. We talked about the grid panel, the box panel, the flow panel, and the border panel. And they have various uses, and we saw that you can nest them in various ways to get things that look the way that you want them to look, even though each particular panel is fairly simple. The panes are a bit different, and the main distinction between a pane and a panel is that the panes are interactive in a certain way. Panels lay things out and don't really interact with the user. The panels do interact with the user. And some of these are things that provide functionality that we've already seen a need for. So the first pane is the scroll pane. And so to see how we might use this, we can go back to our first GUI, which you might recall wound up being a simple text editor. So we had the ability to open and save files, and the contents of the frame was a simple text area. This was a bit of a problem because if there was too much text in there, you couldn't see all of it. So if we run this, and when we did this, we pulled up the program itself inside of the editor, there's lots of text down there, and we can't easily view it. We have to actually make the window bigger. This is a place where you want to have scroll bars, okay? But the scroll bars aren't added automatically for you. Now there is a scroll bar that you can put into a GUI, but the scroll pane gives us a much easier way of doing this. So instead of just putting the text area in the contents, I'm going to nest that text area inside of a scroll pane. That's all it requires. So now the text area is being added, but it's being put inside of a scroll pane, and that scroll pane is put inside of the window. And when we run this, you can see that now when we open this up, because this is large, we get a scroll bar, and we can indeed scroll around and do whatever. If our window were smaller in the horizontal direction, we would also get a horizontal scroll bar. So you get scroll bars as needed when you nest an element inside of the scroll pane. So that's basically what a scroll pane does. We had a need for one of those, though we didn't quite, we never wrote anything that really displayed this need. Inside of our movie GUI as well, for example, we have down here in the GUI, we have this description area. Once again, it's an area. It can be multi-line text. It can be however long you want. It makes sense to nest this inside of a scroll pane. And so just by doing that, now if a description is too long, we will automatically get scroll bars around it. It also makes sense for the movie list to be inside of a scroll pane. If we had a long list of movies, we would want to be able to scroll through it. So those are two places in this GUI that we can use a scroll pane. Another thing, another option for the pane is the split pane. And the idea of the split pane, you've probably seen many GUIs where they have a line down the middle that you can grab and you can drag from side to side. That's what a split pane does. And so when you build a split pane, if we look inside of the API, a split pane, the best way to build it is to give it a value and then tell it what goes to the left and to the right. Now this value can actually be horizontal or vertical, so it's possible that these aren't left and right, they're up and down. The orientation that you give it is the orientation for the bar. So in our GUI, instead of using a border panel at this top level, it's actually worthwhile to use a split pane. Whoops, that's not the one that I wanted to change. I want to change this one, the very top level. That very top level, instead of using that border, because remember we had that problem where our lists were only as big as was absolutely needed, and if we had explored that further, we would have found there are other things where that didn't behave quite the way that we wanted it to. We can use a split pane to get around that. So I'm going to use an orientation of vertical, and instead of adding to a layout, the first thing that I pass in is the first element, and the next thing that I pass in is the next element. So instead of putting those in west and center, I just pass in the scroll pane wrapped around the movie list and the border panel like this. And now if we run this GUI, that's not the one I wanted to run. If we run the movie GUI, line 70. In doing this, I obviously forgot to new border panel, and that closes off the split pane. This is where in my class I put it on my students to find the error. Split pane orientation dot vertical. That's the problem right there. The problem was that closed off that, and I guess there are multiple ways to view this. I just want to close that parentheses there. Sure, that'll work. Had one too many closed curly braces. Now you can see that we get this, and I have the ability to drag it back and forth to make that as big as we want. One of the other advantages of doing this way is that I can go back to not having this movie here. I can actually start with an empty list, and it will not cause problems for me. And so now if I go and I open up my movies, I have Bambi and Aladdin, and that does exactly what I want. Okay, so that's a split pane. The last type of pane is a tabbed pane, and a tabbed pane, we'll just look in the API instead of writing one of these. A tabbed pane has inside of it an object called pages, to which you can add pages. The page type inside of here has a string and a component. What this does is it will, you've seen dialog boxes that have multiple tabs on them. That's what this will do. It will display this string up in the tab, and when you click on that tab you will see this component. They are very handy for making dialog boxes where the user can flip between different things. So that is our coverage of different panes. You can see how we've used them. We've integrated the scroll pane and the split pane into our movie frame. There is still obviously the challenge that this GUI is not very interactive. That is something that we will fix in the next video. See you then.